Many years ago, I worked at a gun shop in Westminster, California called the Stockade. The store's not there anymore, but I was a reloading guy working in the back, and customers, a lot of regulars would come in, one of which, his name was Mark. When Mark was a young man, he lived just a few blocks away from where Sierra was when they were here in Southern California. And Mark told me that he would ride his bicycle down to Sierra and he'd go in there and say, hey, is there something I can do to earn some bullets? He wants to reload. He's a kid. He doesn't have any money, but he's willing to work. They said, sure, let's put you to work. So they put Mark down in the tube with, I believe Mark told me it was Martin, who was the ballistician at that time that was doing load development. So they've got a range below the factory where they're making these projectiles, and they're doing load development down there. Martin would have a gun, and on the wall there would be a whole bunch of barrels. So what they would do is they'd take a few shots, run a couple patches, fill up a 55 drum full of patches as they were cleaning, as they are shooting. And then when the barrel would wash out, Martin would unscrew the barrel, take another one, screw it on, headspace the gun, and they would keep shooting. Well, Mark did a lot of the shooting that went into the Sierra manual. So here's a guy who was there, a guy with a gun, a rifle in his hand, and he's doing all of the shooting for this. So I'm really interested in picking Mark's brain to learn some stuff that he had learned from these people. One of the things that Mark told me was that if you are starting off with a cartridge that you have not loaded before, and I'm just going to use the example of 308 for this example. So I've got here, when you open up, let's say you're going to load a 168 grain projectile, and you've got all of these powders that are listed. Well, how do I know which one I should go with? Well, pick one that's going to give you highest muzzle velocity for the bullet that you're going to load. And if, because powder's hard to find, you can't find that one, well, maybe one of these. Don't pick something that's going to max out with a much lower muzzle velocity. So let's say, for example, that we're going to load TAC with a 168 grain bullet in 308 Winchester 7.62 if you want to find it. And the starting powder charge in the book says 40 grains, maximum of 45.5. Mark told me if you start mid-range and work your way up in 3/10 of a grain increments, you will often find that your best accuracy, your groups will tighten up a little bit back of max. So let's say, for example, that the maximum they're showing in the book is 45.5 grains of powder. Your groups will tighten up somewhere around 44, 44.3, 44.6, something in there. So that's what I started doing, and I tried it. And lo and behold, that is exactly what happens. And not just with 308, I mean, lots of stuff. So every single person you see on the internet, on YouTube or whatever, is going to tell you, you got to start at the bottom and work your way up just to be safe. Fine. Let the lawyers have their way. Start with the starting powder charge and work your way up in 3/10 of a grain increments. But you will find, like I have, that a little back of max, your group suddenly shrink right up. Happy trails.